Kidnappings have become a major crime for police to deal with. Police Minister Bheki Cele says in the first 3 months of this year, get this, over 3,000 kidnappings were reported to police. Very, very scary insights that are kind of developing here. And that report also showing that Gauteng is the hotspot. For more on this, I'm joined by anti-crime activist Yusuf Abramjee, as well as Mike Bolhuis, who is a violent crime investigator. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning. Yusuf, I'm going to start with you in that I want to reflect on this crazy number of over 3,000 kidnappings that took place in the first 3 months of this year. I want you to just talk us through that, but before we do, let's just listen to Minister Bheki Cele, who was delivering those statistics a little earlier in the week.
3,306 kidnapping cases were opened with the police. This crime trend has shown a sharp increase, with over 1,700 more cases reported to the police compared to the same comparative period. Most of the kidnapping cases were hijacking, robbery and rape related. The top 3 police stations with the highest report kidnapping cases were Kempton Park, Herenberg Station in Gauteng Province, and Delmas Province Station in Mpumalanga. The Gauteng Province accounts for the bulk of the kidnapping cases, recording over thousands more cases in the period to reporting.
There you heard the Minister, Yusuf, painting a very grim picture about crime, particularly kidnapping in South Africa, and that it's actually getting worse.
Indeed, we see almost 100% increase compared to the figures for last year and this year. We are talking here of an average of 34 cases each and every day. And according to the police statistics, which are correct, there are 3 major categories. So when we talk of kidnappings, Rofhiwa, we are talking of, for example, people taken hostage while they hijack you, they empty your bank accounts, they keep you for a few hours. That is classified as a kidnapping. If during a house robbery or a burglary, you are there and they take you away as a captive, it's classified as a kidnapping. And we've also had the one category where people are kidnapped and then raped or sexually abused during that period, also classified as a kidnapping. But what the minister failed to mention is that we're having more and more cases of kidnappings where people are taken for ransom. Now, we know that has been in the news for the last few years. We know that there's been a number of high-profile cases, namely the Morty case in Polokwane. Those suspects are still on large. We have a number of cases still active in Gauteng and the Western Cape. In fact, a 32-year-old woman in Cape Town was kidnapped about 2 weeks ago. She's still missing. A well-known businessman, a construction person, was taken in the Western Cape in Parow a few months ago. He is still missing. I believe it's also for ransom. And in the Eastern Cape, like we reported on Crime Watches recently, we are seeing more and more of especially Pakistani, Somali, foreign business people who have been taken captive, being taken kidnapped, and that is for ransom. So we are dealing here with a number of different categories, but when you look at the overall numbers, 3,300 and some odd, a major increase, and something that we on eNCA have repeatedly highlighted and raised our concern. We know the police have a kidnapping task team, they've made some inroads, but clearly these gangs are still operational.
No, clearly there are. And I want to bring you at this point in, Mike, in that what is the problem? Why are things getting worse when there are things like the task team, which was instituted not so long ago, and really just seeing the trends or the ways in which these kidnappers are operating? Why is it that we're not getting it right in curbing the scourge?
Well, Ibrahim explained it perfectly, and we have been, more than a year ago, we've been warning that crime begets crime. So when a crime works, the criminal element will increase, and there will be more of that kind of crime. Unfortunately, all crimes in South Africa pays, and therefore all crimes, and if you look at the statistics, it shows it clearly, has escalated immensely. What is shocking, though, is that kidnapping, hijacking, rapes, violent crimes, and all is now one and the same thing. In other words, the kidnapper might murder, the kidnappers might rape, they might rob, take the car, they do the whole box and dice whilst they are doing the kidnapping. And the reason why this is because it pays.
I think, well, Mike, we've lost your audio there. If you could just check your device to see what's happening. In the meantime, Yusuf, I just want to bring in the issue of skills and the training of our police service in the country. I'm sure you saw there was a horrific story where a botched anti-kidnapping operation ended the life of a nurse who was caught in the crossfire. What do you make of the skill set, the level of training of our police service in the country? And do you think more needs to be done?
Well, let me first of all say, I think the general view, and that many experts will agree with me, is that we have many capable, hardworking, efficient, effective members of the South African Police Service. And we also have a number of them who are rotten. I don't say allegedly rotten, they are criminal, they are corrupt. And even with the kidnappings, we've seen a number of them being involved with these gangs. Some of them are still behind bars, some of them are awaiting trial. So we have a number of good cops. The kidnapping task team, which was set up some time ago, was beefed up earlier this year. They comprise largely of detectives from National Detective Services, from the provinces, from Crime Intelligence, National. And we know crime intelligence historically have been a problem, but they've made some good inroads. The Minister of Police in the crime statistics briefing yesterday made the point that crime intelligence on a local level, a police station level, has to be improved. Now, we know that the police are under-resourced, they don't have vehicles, many of the vehicles are broken down. I would say that they have to put a lot of energy, effort and money into making sure they have the tools of the trade. Now, having said that, the kidnapping task team, as far as kidnappings are concerned, have made some inroads. We know that a major gang in Lenasia, some 12 people were arrested. Some of them are still behind bars. 1 or 2 of them are applying for bail. I've said it before and I will repeat it. There is a problem with the criminal justice system. Many of the people involved or implicated in serious crimes are getting bailed too easily, coming out only to commit more crime. Look at the crime statistics of yesterday. Murder has gone up. We're talking of an average of 67 people being killed each and every day on average. Attempted murder has gone up. Car hijackings have gone up dramatically. And by the way, Mamelodi in Pretoria, KwaZulu-Natal, other hotspots. We've seen even commercial crimes have gone up. The list just goes on and on. Sexual crimes, we are talking of at least 10,000 people being raped over a period of 3 months. So we're living in a very violent society. As far as kidnappings are concerned, we have the major gangs that demand millions. We have the so-called copycat gangs. And many of the copycat gangs, the so-called smaller gangs, are now active in especially parts of Gauteng, the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. And I think the police have a lot of work to do, as much as some of them have the skills, but they need a lot of capacity. But having said that, the private security industry have slowly got involved. There are 1 or 2 rogue operators who are not even registered with SIRA that go to the families after the kidnapping. They charge them an X amount of money, which is a crime. And my advice very often to the families is make sure you deal with credible investigators, credible security people, people that are registered with SIRA and not fly-by-night, because otherwise you are going to just pay more and more money.
No, absolutely. You bring some very important points there. And I wanted to talk to you about the private sector security and the role that they can play, but you've kind of furnished us with that detail quite clearly. But Mike, if you can hear me, maybe the role that technology can play within our institutions of law enforcement, police stations and the like, to deal with these issues of the backlogs. So Yusuf did mention that a lot of it is because of corruption that exists from criminal elements within the system, but also the lack of resources. And one would say if we introduce different technologies, that might assist the issue somewhat, because otherwise we'll continue to have the same conversations and see the skyrocketing numbers of people being murdered.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Go ahead.
All right. So what Yusuf has said there is on the head. The technology plays a very, very big role. If the grabbers are in place and if they are working, a grabber is a machine that can track and trace cell phone numbers. all criminals use cell phone numbers. There's not a criminal that would not use technology. So the best way to catch the criminals is by when they're making the calls in order to claim the ransom and to do the threats and intimidation. But if those infrastructure elements is not available in South Africa, and there's not enough task teams, as was earlier said, if there's no proper policing, no proper protect and serve, no proper visual policing, if the government does not take all crimes serious in South Africa, this will be to no avail. Unfortunately, we as the public, we as private security institutions, we are not the law, we are not the police, we are not number one, we are all number two. We can only assist, and we can only try and solve crimes and prevent crimes by assisting the police. But if the police does not have the proper infrastructure, if they don't have the people there that wants to work, that wants to protect and serve, are skilled and properly trained, using this technology, and cybercrime is the future, guys. Everybody must understand that. The criminal element will concentrate all the more by working with the cybercrime crimes that they commit. They follow these people, they get all the information, they know how much they have in the banks, they track their cell phone numbers, they know exactly what, where, when and how much, and they get that all through technology. So the police must counter. They must be able to have that infrastructure in place. And it's not in South Africa. It's not there. We deal with a lot of kidnappings. And I agree there with what Yusuf has said. You must be extremely careful who you get involved in serious violent crime cases. It can just make it worse. And that includes even policemen. Some policemen get involved in these crimes. They jump on the bandwagon and they become part of the kidnapping syndicates. And some of the security guards or security institutions do the same. It's a very serious problem. But in the end, we all will have to work together. There has to be a bridge that we need to cross and hold hands with the government, with the infrastructure of safety and security in South Africa, the police and private investigators. There are those who really fight this kind of crime, like me and Yusuf and other institutions that really go out of our way. Yes, and it does cost money because we have to pay for everything and do everything, and we have specialist investigators that deal with this. But if the infrastructure at the police station or at these task units is not available, we cannot solve these crimes, and all these crimes will escalate immensely.
So, Mike, then, with all of that you've just mentioned, both of you, Mike, are you confident that the 12,000 police officers that were announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa during the State of the Nation address are going to be enough to deal with the scourge that we've just unpacked?
No, I don't think so. And my biggest concern is you can appoint 20,000 policemen. But if they're not thoroughly trained, I'm not talking about a 3-month course, I'm talking about at least a year, 2-year course in everything. South Africa has all the crimes on the table. And you cannot just deal with one crime. Crime begets crime. You start by stealing a cell phone, then it's the handbag, then it's the car, then you rape, kill, and maim. It will escalate unless there is thorough safety and security infrastructures by the government in place, by policemen that is really there because they want to protect and serve and is thoroughly and well trained and equipped with infrastructure and technology. I haven't even mentioned the effect that our country presently finds itself in has on the human beings in our country. I mean, look at the increases of prices. Look at the infrastructure failures everywhere. Look at the power situation. Look at the corruption in the government. Every piece of news you get is either policemen that were corrupt or a government official that was corrupt. Look at the suicide rate that has escalated. Look at the present state of our people in our country. How can the people support the government, support the police? Who will come forward and say, there's a criminal, there's a criminal? They're too scared. The criminals has hijacked our country because they can do this and can get away with it. So unfortunately, I pray that and I run this race with the idea to win it, but I know in the end we're going to lose it in the way we're going on now. Unless this government has a thorough, expert police unit, we will not be able to deal with crime. Neither me, neither Yusuf or any other private institution, neither the police or the government would.
Very, very bleak insights that you've just shared with us here. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We have run out of time. I do wish we had more time. There's so much to discuss when it comes to these violent kidnappings that are increasing in the country, and particularly in Gauteng. That's anti-crime activist Yusuf Abramjee and violent crime investigator Mike Bolhuis joining us to discuss those issues.